The air on Evanthea, once sweet with the scent of xyla blossoms and ripe grail fruit, now tasted of ozone and bitter dust. Crimson light from the dying emergency beacons pulsed across the once gleaming biodomes, now shattered and choked with a crystalline infestation that glittered malevolently. What had been a jewel of the Stellar Compact's agricultural worlds was rapidly becoming a tomb. Kython xenophysicist Lyria, her normally pristine environmental suit smudged with grime and frozen panic, stumbled through the ruins of her primary research facility. Her breath rasped in her auditory sensors. Around her, the Kro'gon Scourge advanced. It wasn't a creature in the conventional sense, no teeth, no claws, no discernible malice. It was simply a conversion. A silent, crystalline tide that consumed energy, replicated, and transformed. Metals, synthetics, flesh, all were rendered into inert, razor-sharp crystal formations that spread like an unstoppable frost. Living beings became grotesque statues, their last moments of terror immortalized in fragile alien carapaces. Sector Gamma is lost, Lyria managed to transmit, her voice thin and strained. The Kro'gon, it's adapting to the sonic disruptors. They're growing around the frequencies. Her multi-jointed fingers trembled on the transmitter. A crystalline shard, needle-thin, pierced the plasteel wall beside her head, growing visibly, a silent, glittering spear. She didn't have time to scream before the frost overtook her. On Concordia Prime, the central hub of the Stellar Compact, the news from Evanthea sent fresh waves of despair through the High Council chamber. The vast, ornate room, usually a place of measured debate and intricate diplomacy, felt more like a war room teetering on the brink of collapse. Holographic displays shimmered, showing the inexorable spread of the Kro'gon infestation across multiple star systems. Red icons blinked like accusing eyes, each one a world lost or dying. Envoy Alara Vane, a respected Kython diplomat and scientist, watched the grim tally with a heavy heart. Her species, the Kython, were pillars of the Compact, beings of immense intellect and creators of subtle, powerful technologies. They were thinkers, builders, artists. They were not, however, particularly resilient in the face of raw, overwhelming physical threats that defied their sophisticated understanding of physics. The Kro'gon was such a threat. It didn't reason, it didn't negotiate, it simply was, and it consumed. Her own homeworld, Xylos, with its meticulously controlled sterile environments, would be utterly defenseless if the Scourge ever reached it. War Leader Borak Khan addressed the High Chancellor, his voice weary. Your fleets report no success in halting the Kro'gon advance at the Valerius Nebula. War Leader Borak Khan, a hulking Vorlog, straightened his already ramrod-straight posture. The Vorlog were the Compact's primary military arm, a species of formidable warriors who believed in strict discipline, overwhelming firepower, and unwavering adherence to proven battle doctrines. His scaled features, set in a permanent scowl, tightened further. Chancellor, my forces have deployed the Chronoton torpedoes as authorized. Borak Khan's deep voice resonated with barely suppressed frustration. The initial detonations vaporized the Kro'gon formations, but within cycles the crystalline structures reformed, exhibiting an almost complete resistance to Chronoton particle disruption. We expended half our arsenal in the Valerius engagement for less than a decacycle of containment. He slammed a clawed fist onto the armrest of his station. It learns. It adapts faster than we can devise new countermeasures based on established principles. Alara Vane noted the careful addition of based on established principles. That was the Vorlag way. If a solution wasn't in their exhaustive combat manuals, it was deemed unreliable, reckless even. But their manuals were proving useless. Our energy weapons are becoming less effective with each encounter, added a Xintar delegate, its gelatinous form quivering. The Kro'gon crystals are now actively absorbing directed energy, using it to accelerate their growth. A grim silence settled over the council. The Kro'gon Scourge wasn't just a plague. It was an anti-civilization force, turning their own technological strengths against them. We are facing an existential threat, the Chancellor stated, his gaze sweeping across the assembled representatives. Our conventional strategies are failing. Our science divisions are stretched to their limits attempting to understand the Krogon's fundamental nature, let alone find a weakness. Therefore, he paused, letting the weight of his next words sink in. I am invoking Emergency Protocol Omega. We will now consider unconventional solutions, all avenues no matter how unorthodox. A murmur went through the council. Protocol Omega was a last resort, a desperate measure that opened the door to fringe theories, untested technologies, and even consultation with non-compact species if deemed necessary. Borak Khan shifted, his disapproval a palpable force. Chancellor, while I acknowledge the severity of the situation, unconventional solutions often equates to unacceptable risks. We must maintain discipline, not grasp at straws. Discipline has given us a string of beautifully managed defeats, War Leader, Alara Vane interjected, her voice calm but firm. Her Kythan sensibilities recoiled at the Vorlag's rigid unwillingness to adapt his thinking. The time for grasping may be upon us, lest we have nothing left to hold. The Chancellor nodded curtly at Alara. Envoy Vane, your department has been reviewing a backlog of deep-range planetary surveys, particularly those cataloging extreme environmental conditions and unique biological adaptations. Is there anything at all that might offer a new perspective? Alara activated her personal display. A star chart appeared, a blinking red marker in a relatively unexplored sector, designated 734. There is one anomaly, Chancellor. A planet classified by our initial long-range probe centuries ago as a Class 12 hazard. Terminal hazard ecosystem, the report stated. The probe itself was damaged by extreme radiation and gravitational shearing before it could complete its analysis, but what little data it sent back was alarming, Borak Khan snorted. A Class 12 death world? And you propose this as a source of salvation, Envoy? We are trying to stop a plague, not unleash another. The Kro'gon is unlike anything we have encountered, Alara countered, her gaze steady on the war leader. It thrives in sterile, predictable environments where it can easily convert existing energy and matter. Perhaps the answer lies not in greater sterility or more refined energy, but in something that thrives in utter chaos, something that has evolved to fight a million different threats simultaneously, every single moment of its existence. She focused on the red marker. This death world, as you call it, is teeming with complex life that according to all our models shouldn't exist. If sentient life has managed to arise and sustain itself there, it must possess biological and ecological adaptations of an order we can barely comprehend. The Chancellor leaned forward. What is this planet called, Envoy? Alara zoomed in on the data. The local designation, according to the fragmented probe data, appears to be Earth. She paused. I am requesting a scout vessel to investigate Sector 734 immediately. With your permission, Chancellor, I will lead this reconnaissance myself. It is a slim hope, perhaps a foolish one, but our current path leads only to ruin. Borak Khan looked ready to argue further, but the Chancellor raised a hand. A slim hope is better than none. Permission granted, Envoy Vane. Take the Seeker's path. May your journey bring us something other than more bad news. Alara Vane bowed her head. I will depart at once, Chancellor. As she turned to leave, the weight of countless, dying worlds settled upon her slender shoulders. Earth, a Class 12 death world. Could a place so hostile it was deemed a death trap truly hold the key to the galaxy's survival? Or was she, as Borak Khan clearly believed, merely chasing a phantom, down a path to an even greater catastrophe? The journey of the Kython scout ship, Seeker's Path, to Sector 734 was swift and silent, a silver sliver gliding through the interstellar void. Inside, Envoy Alara Vane spent most of the transit cycles reviewing the scant, centuries-old data on the target planet, Earth. The probe's final, garbled telemetry painted a picture of a world caught in a constant maelstrom of geological upheaval, extreme weather patterns, and radiation levels that should have sterilized any nascent life. Gravity was unusually high for a terrestrial world supporting such complex topography. The atmospheric composition was a bizarre, reactive soup. And yet, biosignatures had been undeniably, overwhelmingly present. Approaching target system, Sol, designation, anomalous, the ship's AI announced, its voice a calm counterpoint to Alara's growing unease. On the main viewer, a yellow star flared to life, unassuming compared to the exotic pulsars and magnetars that marked more interesting stellar phenomena. But as they neared its third planet, Alara felt a prickle of something akin to dread. The initial sensor sweeps from this closer range were even more alarming than the old probe data. Earth was a riot of uncontrolled energies. Gigantic storms, visible even from high orbit, raged across its surface. Tectonic plates ground against each other with furious abandon, and the sheer density of biological information. It was an avalanche. Confirming. Class 12 hazard parameters, Ilara murmured, her delicate Kython features tight with a mixture of scientific fascination and instinctual revulsion. Atmospheric oxygen levels at 21%. Highly corrosive. Unfiltered solar radiation. Lethal spectrum. And the biodiversity readings. It's like the planet itself is a runaway biological experiment. Her people, the Kython, evolved on a world of gentle light, stable geology, and meticulously balanced ecosystems. Xylos was a garden. Earth, it seemed, was a battlefield. How could anything sentient not just survive but thrive here? Detecting artificial structures in high orbit, Envoy, the AI reported. Primitive by compact standards, but definitely technological, predominantly metallic alloys, emitting rudimentary communication signals. Attempt to hail them on standard first contact frequencies, Alara ordered, her 3 hearts beating a little faster. Use passive introduction protocols. We are here to observe and, if possible, communicate, not to alarm. The Seeker's path extended its comms array, a filigree of advanced Kython engineering, and sent out a carefully modulated greeting, pulse. For several tense minutes there was only static, the background hiss of a system teeming with raw, untamed energy. Then a new signal, crude but powerful, locked onto theirs. On board UN Star Station Kronos, humanity's largest orbital platform and primary off-world interface, alarms blared. "Unknown contact, Commander," reported the communications officer, Lieutenant Rajiv Das, his voice tight. "Non-Terran signature, high energy profile. It's polite? Sending a standard greeting packet." Commander Zara Hendrix strode onto the command deck, her presence instantly calming the low hum of anxiety. Zara was a veteran of Earth's nascent interstellar patrol, a woman who had faced down rogue asteroids and solar flares with the same steely resolve. "On screen, Lieutenant. Analysis?" The main view screen flickered, then resolved into a telemetry display of a sleek silver vessel unlike anything human-made. It was impossibly graceful, almost organic in its lines. "Definitely alien, Commander," said the sensor chief. "Energy readings are off the charts, but it's holding a stable, non-aggressive posture. Seems to be waiting." "They know. We're here," Zara stated. She turned to another figure on the deck, a man who had been observing a holographic display of Earth's turbulent weather patterns with an almost affectionate gaze. "Dr. Cassian, your thoughts?" Dr. Jona Cassian, Earth's foremost xenobotanist and a leading theorist on extremophile adaptation, pushed a stray lock of dark hair from his brow. His eyes, usually alight with scientific curiosity, held a spark of something more. Anticipation. "Well, Zara, it was bound to happen eventually. Given the universe's sheer size, it's statistically improbable we're the only children at the party." He grinned faintly. "As for this particular arrival, their ship design suggests a high level of technological sophistication. And their approach is cautious. That's promising." Zara nodded. "Lieutenant Das, open a channel. Standard welcome package. Let them know we're the United Nations of Earth, and we come in peace. But keep shields at 70% just in case their definition of peace is more robust than ours." Aboard the Seeker's path, Alara Vane watched as the human response came through. It was rudimentary, the language blocky and inefficient by compact standards. But the intent was clear. They were acknowledging the contact, offering peaceful dialogue. They call themselves humans, Alara noted. From Earth. She took a steadying breath. Prepare a visual link. Let's see who these Deathworlders are. The connection established. On the Kronos' view screen, the image of the Kython envoy resolved. Alara Vane was tall and slender, her skin a pale luminous blue, with large dark eyes that seemed to absorb all light. Her movements were fluid, almost ethereal. Zara Hendrix kept her expression neutral, though a ripple of surprise went through the human crew. This was it. First confirmed contact with an intelligent extraterrestrial species. I am Envoy Alara Vane of the Kython Ascendancy, representing the Stellar Compact. Alara's voice was melodic, translated seamlessly by the Seekers, Path's advanced AI. We come in peace, seeking understanding. Commander Zara Hendrix, United Nations Star Command. Zara replied, her voice firm and clear. Dr. Jona Cassian, Lead Science Officer. Welcome to the Sol System, Envoy. Your arrival is unexpected. Jona stepped slightly forward, his gaze intense. Envoy Vane, your vessel's energy signature and the classification of your civilization suggest you are aware of the unique environmental conditions of our planet. Alara inclined her head. Indeed, Dr. Cassian. Our long-range probes classified Earth as a Class 12 hazard, a world where, by our understanding, complex, intelligent life should face insurmountable challenges to its very existence. Yet here you are. Her gaze was searching, a flicker of disbelief in her large eyes. We are intrigued and concerned. Such an environment must exert extraordinary pressures. Jona chuckled, a dry, knowing sound that seemed to momentarily startle the Kython envoy. Pressures, Envoy? Oh, certainly. We have earthquakes that can swallow cities, hurricanes that can scour continents, volcanoes that can blot out the sun. Our flora and fauna have developed a delightful array of venoms, toxins, and predatory strategies. The very air you would breathe would likely be a corrosive irritant to your species. We call it Tuesday. Zara shot Jona a mild glare, but a small smile played on her lips. His bluntness was often effective. Alara Vane was silent for a long moment, processing. You jest? Only slightly, Envoy, Jona said, his smile fading into a more serious expression. Earth is, by any objective measure, a tough neighborhood, but it's our tough neighborhood. It has shaped us, forced us to adapt, to innovate, to become resilient in ways that species from more temperate climes might find difficult to appreciate. We categorize our planet as a death trap, Zara added, picking up the thread, her voice resonating with quiet pride. We call it home improvement. Every challenge Earth throws at us, we find a way to meet, to overcome, or, at the very least, to live with. Alara Vane stared at the two humans. Their casual acceptance, even pride in conditions that would annihilate her own people, was profoundly unsettling, yet undeniably fascinating. The initial data hadn't been wrong. It had simply failed to capture the sheer audacity of the life that called this chaotic world home. Envoy Vane, Zara continued, her tone shifting to a more formal, inquisitive note. Your journey here was clearly intentional. Beyond scientific curiosity about our hazardous world, what brings the Stellar Compact to our doorstep? Alara hesitated. The full truth of the Kro'gon Scourge felt too vast, too terrifying to unveil in these initial moments. Our compact is facing significant challenges, Commander. We are exploring all phenomena that demonstrate unique resilience. Earth and humanity represent an extreme outlier in that regard. She paused, choosing her words carefully. I would like to request permission for a closely escorted scientific survey, specifically to analyze biological agents and ecosystems that thrive under what we would term lethal conditions. What we learn might offer new perspectives. Zara exchanged a look with Jona. His eyes gleamed. A chance to show off Earth's deadly wonders to a genuinely advanced alien? It was a scientist's dream, and for Zara, It was a chance to understand the intentions of these newcomers. A survey can be arranged, Envoy, Zara said, under strict UN escort and with full adherence to our biosecurity protocols. Dr. Cassian will liaise with you on the details. Welcome to the Deathworld anomaly, Envoy. Try not to get eaten. Jona grinned. Alara Vane simply stared, the term eaten, adding another layer to her rapidly expanding file on the incomprehensible, terrifying, and utterly fascinating species known as humanity. The hook was set. She had come seeking resilience, and she had found it in a form she could never have predicted. The human shuttle, a rugged, over-engineered craft named the Mudskipper, bucked and rattled as it descended through Earth's turbulent atmosphere. Envoy Alara Vane was strapped securely into a guest acceleration couch, her usually serene Kython, physiology struggling to adapt to the relentless gravitational forces and atmospheric buffeting. Her personal biosuit, a marvel of Kython miniaturization, was working overtime, its internal display a constant stream of warnings about airborne particulates, microbial threats, and radiation hotspots. Commander Zara Hendrix piloted the Mudskipper, with a practiced ease that Alara found both unnerving and impressive. Beside her, Dr. Jona Cassian seemed to be actively enjoying the rough ride, pointing out various geological formations and storm systems, with the enthusiasm of a tour guide showcasing his favorite landmarks. Down there, Envoy, Jona's voice crackled through the internal comms, is the Mariana Trench Research Outpost. We're studying chemosynthetic life forms that thrive under pressures that would crush your scout ship like a grape. Fascinating extremophiles. Some of them eat sulfur and excrete, well, things that could power a small city if we could scale. Get up. Alara looked at the churning dark ocean below, then back at the readouts on her suit. The pressure alone, the toxicity, keeps them honest, Jona said cheerfully. Their first stop was a research station perched precariously on the caldera rim of an active supervolcano in what the humans called Yellowstone. The ground thrummed with latent power, and vents spewed clouds of sulfurous steam that made Alara's optical sensors water, despite her suit's filters. Humans in thermal gear moved about with casual confidence, taking readings from bubbling pools of acid and extremophile mats that glowed in lurid shades of orange and green. Jona, now in a less cumbersome but still robust environmental suit, led Alara to a reinforced observation platform. These thermophils, Envoy, they don't just tolerate heat and acidity that would dissolve most off-world alloys, they require it. Their cellular repair mechanisms are astonishing. We're talking about life that considers boiling acid a pleasant spa day. He gestured to a scientist carefully taking a sample from a steaming vent. Dr. Anya Sharma here is cultivating a strain that can break down complex hydrocarbons into inert, biodegradable compounds, very useful for cleaning up our own industrial messes. Alara watched, her mind, accustomed to the pristine, controlled environments of Kython science facilities, struggling to reconcile the scene. This wasn't a laboratory, it was a barely tamed hellscape. Yet these humans treated it like a backyard garden. She collected samples, her own automated systems meticulously cataloging the terrifying potency of each microbe, each spore. Next, they journeyed to a deep jungle research reserve in the Amazon basin. The air was thick, wet, and thrumming with the calls of unseen creatures. Towering trees formed a dense canopy, filtering the harsh sunlight into a dim green twilight. Here Jona introduced her to a team studying neurotoxins. This little fellow, Jona said, indicating a vibrant, jewel-toned frog perched on a leaf within a transparent containment field held by a researcher, is the golden poison dart frog. Its skin secretions contain enough batrachotoxin to kill 10 adult human males. Or, he glanced at Alara, probably 100 Kython, no offense. Alara instinctively took a step back. And you study it? Willingly? Of course, Jona replied. Understanding its biochemistry helps us develop antitoxins, and some of these compounds in microdoses have incredible pharmaceutical potential. Painkillers, muscle relaxants. Nature's deadliest weapons often hide its most potent cures. It's all about balance and surviving long enough to figure it out. During a brief respite aboard the mudskipper as they transited to another location, Zara shared some dried rations with Ilara. The Kython politely declined, her own nutrient paste being far more suited to her biology. Our first interstellar visitors categorized our planet as a Deathtrap envoy, Zara said, her tone conversational, but with an undercurrent of pride. We, on the other hand, tend to think of it as an ongoing home improvement project. You learn to work with the environment, or it buries you. Quickly. Ilara thought of the meticulously manicured parks of Xylos, where weather was a controlled simulation, and the most dangerous predator was a slightly over-enthusiastic pollinator. But the contrast was staggering. The final stop was a coastal research facility in a region prone to colossal hurricanes and tsunamis. They arrived just as a major storm was making landfall. Ilara watched, wide-eyed from the reinforced observatory, as 100-foot waves crashed against specially designed seawalls and wind howled like a banshee. Human engineers were out in armored vehicles, monitoring stress tolerances on the barriers. We used to lose cities to these things, Jona explained, his voice raised over the roar. Now we're learning to harness some of that energy. Tidal generators, wind farms built to withstand incredible forces. We even have researchers studying the unique marine life that thrives in these high-energy zones. Some species of barnacle here have adhesives that could permanently bond starship's hull plates. As the mudskipper finally ascended, leaving the bruised and battered coastline behind, Ilara Vane was quiet. Her sample cases were full, her databanks overflowing. She had witnessed humans calmly discussing the lethal potential of creatures. They kept as research subjects, even pets. Zara had casually mentioned a somewhat devenomed arachnid-like creature named Fluffy that was a popular mascot on the Kronos. She had seen them harness energies that would terrify most compact species and inhabit environments that should have been sterile. Back on the Kronos, in a specially prepared biocontainment lab, Ilara and Jona began the preliminary analysis of the collected samples. They focused on the Extremophiles, the bacteria from volcanic vents, the fungi from irradiated caverns, the resilient microbes from the deepest sea trenches. Jona had also brought up small, carefully contained samples of the Kro'gon crystal, provided by Ilara from the Seeker's Path. The Kro'gon appears to function by creating a resonant energy cascade, Ilara explained, indicating a holographic model of the crystalline structure. It absorbs ambient energy, converts local matter, and uses a quantum entanglement network to coordinate its growth. It's perfect in its destructive simplicity. Jona nodded, his gaze fixed on a petri dish where one of Earth's most aggressive thermophilic bacteria was being introduced to a minuscule Kro'gon shard. Perfection is often brittle, envoy. Earth life isn't perfect. It's messy, redundant, and incredibly aggressive. It fights for every niche, every energy source. They watched. At first, nothing happened. Then slowly, the bacteria, which thrived in conditions that should have made it inert, began to react to the Kro'gon shard. It wasn't repelled, it wasn't consumed. Instead, the edges of the shard, where the bacteria made contact, seemed too dull. The crystalline lattice showed microscopic fractures. By the first ancestors, Ilara breathed, leaning closer. What is it doing? My guess, Jona said, a slow smile spreading across his face. It's treating the Kro'gon's energy matrix like any other sulfur deposit or exotic metal. It's trying to eat it, or at least break it down for useful components. Earth life is the ultimate scavenger, envoy. Nothing goes to waste, not even hyper-advanced crystalline doom plagues. The effect was tiny, almost imperceptible. But it was there. A biological agent from a Class 12 death world was, impossibly, degrading a sample of the galaxy's greatest threat. Ilara Vane looked from the petri dish to Jona Cassian, then back again. The paradox of this planet, this species, was sharper than ever. They lived on a knife edge, surrounded by death. And in doing so, they had cultivated a form of life so tenacious, so adaptable, it might just be the only thing capable of confronting the unthinking, unyielding Kro'gon. The horror she had felt during her tour was slowly being replaced by a new electrifying emotion, hope. A terrifying, messy Deathworlder kind of hope. The Ansible connection crackled, stabilizing into a high-fidelity holographic link between UN Star Station Kronos and the Stellar Compact High Council on Concordia Prime. Envoy Ilara Vane stood beside Dr. Jona Cassian, the minuscule yet potent results from their preliminary tests displayed on a shared screen. Commander Zara Hendrix stood slightly behind them, a silent, watchful presence. Esteemed council members, Ilara began, her voice carrying a new note of conviction. Our investigation into the Sol system, specifically the planet designated Earth, has yielded unexpected and potentially transformative results. She summarized her survey of Earth, careful to balance the sheer lethality of the environment with the undeniable resilience and adaptability of its native life, including humanity. She described the initial test where Terran Extremophiles had demonstrated an inhibitory, even degradative effect on contained Kro'gon samples. A ripple of disbelief and cautious intrigue passed through the council chamber. War Leader Borak Khan, his massive form rigid, was the first to voice his skepticism. Envoy Vane, his deep voice boomed, laced with suspicion. Are you suggesting that these Extremophiles from a Class 12 contamination zone, a planet you yourself described as a death trap, are a viable solution to the Kro'gon Scourge? This is beyond reckless. It is an invitation to an even greater biological catastrophe. War Leader, Jona Cassian interjected, his tone calm but firm. With all due respect, your non-hazardous conventional methods are failing to prevent galactic catastrophe. What Earth's biology offers is not a controlled, predictable sterility, but a dynamic, aggressive counteragent. The Kro'gon thrives by converting predictable energy and matter. Earth life, by its very nature, is unpredictable and thrives by consuming complex energy and matter. It's a fundamental opposition. Jona elaborated on his hypothesis. The Kro'gon had never encountered biological agents forged in such an intensely competitive and hazardous environment. Earth's microbes were warriors, honed by billions of years of relentless evolutionary conflict, capable of breaking down an astonishing array of substances and surviving conditions that would sterilize most known life forms. We propose the development of a Terran Cocktail, Jona continued, a synergistic blend of several extremophile species, each selected for its ability to disrupt different aspects of the Kro'gon's crystalline structure and energy matrix. Delivered in sufficient concentration to a Kro'gon nexus, we believe it could trigger a cascading biological failure in the Scourge. Deliver it, Borak Khan scoffed. And how do you propose to approach a Kro'gon nexus, Doctor? They are the most heavily fortified and dangerous manifestations of the Scourge. Our best cruisers have been torn apart attempting such maneuvers. This was Zara Hendrix's cue. She stepped forward, her commander's insignia glinting. We would use a human vessel, War Leader, our prototype exploration ship, the UNSS Trailblazer. A schematic of the Trailblazer appeared. It was smaller than a compact cruiser, less overtly armed, but its design was clearly different. More robust, with visible redundancies and what looked like organic components integrated into its hull. The Trailblazer is not like your vessels, Zara explained. She was designed to survive Earth's more extreme environments and for deep space exploration into uncharted, potentially hostile territory. Her systems incorporate experimental biomechanical interfaces. Her hull includes colonies of radiation-absorbing fungi. Her life support can recycle almost anything. She's adaptable and resilient, much like her crew. We believe she has a better chance of surviving the approach than a standard compact warship, which the Kro'gon seems to have learned. The audacity of the proposal hung in the air. These newcomers, these Deathworlders, were not only claiming to have a potential solution, but were also volunteering to deliver it themselves, using a ship that sounded more like a science experiment than a war vessel. This is madness, one of the more conservative counselors exclaimed. To entrust our fate to a primitive, unproven species and their bizarre, contaminated technology? Ilara Vane stepped forward again, her gaze sweeping the council. Primitives who have, in mere days, shown more progress against the Kro'gon than the combined might of the Stellar Compact has in cycles, she stated firmly. Their methods are unorthodox. Their world is terrifying, yes, but their results, however preliminary, speak for themselves. The Kro'gon is a biological crisis that has outpaced our technological solutions. Perhaps a biological solution, born from the most biologically intense crucible we have yet discovered, is precisely what is required. She looked directly at Borak Khan. War leader, you value proven results. The humans are offering a chance to prove theirs. Borak Khan's expression was thunderous. He saw humans as volatile, unpredictable, their home planet a testament to chaos. To him, their proposal was the height of irresponsibility. And if this Terran Cocktail mutates? If it becomes a new plague? If these Extremophiles decide that our ships and worlds are just as appetizing as the Kro'gon? That is a risk, war leader, I won't deny it, Jona conceded. But these are not sentient, malicious entities. They are biological tools. We have been studying and learning to control or at least coexist with far more dangerous organisms on Earth for centuries. We understand containment. And frankly, the Kro'gon Scourge is consuming your worlds now. We are offering a desperate measure for a desperate time. He paused. The crew of the Trailblazer would be entirely human volunteers. We risk ourselves, our ship first. A tense silence descended as the council members absorbed the weight of the Terran proposition. The Chancellor, who had remained silent, finally spoke, his voice heavy. We are, as Dr. Cassian rightly states, in desperate times. The Kro'gon continues its advance. Our fleets are decimated. Our worlds are dying. He looked at the impassive face of war leader Borak Khan, then at the earnest, determined expressions of the humans and the newfound conviction in Ilara Vane. A full-scale deployment is out of the question based on such limited data. However, he took a deep breath. The Council will authorize a limited, contained trial. One Kro'gon Nexus, preferably an outlying smaller one if such can be identified. The UNSS Trailblazer, with its volunteer crew, will undertake this mission. Envoy Vane, you will accompany them as the Compact's official observer and liaison. War Leader Borak Khan, you will assign one of your most trusted technical officers to join the mission as well, purely in an advisory and observational capacity, to ensure Compact protocols are understood even if not strictly adhered to, and to report directly back to this council. Borak Khan's jaw tightened, but he gave a curt nod. An observer was better than nothing, a way to keep tabs on these reckless Terrans. He already knew who he would send. Harkon, a young but brilliant technician, utterly loyal to Vorlog, principles and immune to sentimental nonsense. Zara Hendrix's eyes met Jona Cassian's. It wasn't full approval, but it was a chance. A deadly, high-stakes chance. We understand, Chancellor, Zara said. We accept the terms. Then may your Earth's unique strengths be enough, the Chancellor said, his voice devoid of its usual assurance. Because if you fail or if this cocktail proves to be another monster, the consequences will be unimaginable. The connection closed, leaving the humans and Ilara in the relative quiet of the Kronos lab. Well, Jona said, letting out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. That was less hostile than I expected. Some of them, anyway. Borak Khan will ensure his observer is a thorough skeptic, Zara mused. This Harkon will be watching our every move, ready to report any deviation. Let him watch, Jona said, a glint in his eye. Maybe he'll learn something about how Deathworlders get things done. He looked at the samples of Extremophiles now imbued with a galaxy-altering potential. Time to start brewing, Commander. We have a cocktail to mix and a nexus to bust. The Terran proposition was now the Terran mandate. The last hope of the galaxy, it seemed, rested on a ship built from human ingenuity and Earth's dangerous gifts, crewed by people who called a Deathtrap home. The UNSS Trailblazer shimmered into existence at the edge of the Gloom sector, the region of space most heavily blighted by the Kro'gon Scourge. Standard FTL travel was impossible within the sector. The Kro'gon's energy-dampening fields and gravitational distortions played havoc with warp drives. The Trailblazer engaged its experimental null-slip drive, a human innovation that created microtunnels through subspace, slower than FTL but far more resistant to interference. Inside, the mood was a mixture of grim determination and focused energy. Commander Zara Hendrix was on the bridge, her gaze fixed on the sensor displays that painted a chilling picture of the void ahead. Twisted crystalline debris fields, the remains of stellar compact warships and unfortunate civilian vessels, littered the star lanes. Dr. Jona Cassian was in the primary science lab, monitoring the Terran Cocktail, now housed in specially shielded deployment torpedoes. The blend of Extremophiles was stable but dormant, awaiting the precise trigger sequence for activation. Envoy Alara Vane moved with a quiet grace through the human ship, a stark contrast to the bustling, sometimes chaotic efficiency of the Terran crew. She observed everything, her Kythan senses absorbing the unique atmosphere of the Trailblazer. The air hummed with a different kind of energy than on compact vessels, a thrum that was part machine, part something else. She could feel the faint vibrations of the symbiotic algae colonies integrated into the hydroponics bay, purifying air and water. She saw the way the ship's lighting subtly shifted in response to the crew's circadian rhythms, a feature Jona had called mood-sympathetic illumination. It was also organic, so Earth-like. The Vorlag technical officer Harkon was a far more stoic presence. Young, powerfully built even for a Vorlag, with scales the color of burnished iron, he kept mostly to himself, his station a model of austere neatness. His reports back to War Leader Borakan were concise, factual, and tinged with an undercurrent of barely concealed disapproval of human methods, which he clearly found sloppy and dangerously improvisational. He logged every minor system fluctuation, every deviation from the pre-approved mission plan Zara had been forced to submit. "Commander," the COEMM's officer reported, picking up a distress signal. "Faint, heavily degraded. Origin, a Gralnak. Freighter, by the looks of its energy signature or what's left of it." Zara frowned. The Gralnak were a hardy, silicon-based species from a high-gravity world, known for their practical engineering skills. They were members of the Compact, though often overlooked. "Location? Deep within a particle field, Commander." "Likely. Why it hasn't been fully crystallized yet. Looks like they tried to hide." "Harkon," Zara said, turning to the Vorlag. "Compact protocol on active distress signals in a hostile zone." Harkon didn't look up from his console. "Protocol dictates avoiding unnecessary risk to the primary mission. A Gralnak freighter is a tertiary asset. The mission to the Nexus is paramount." His voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Jona Cassian, who had come to the bridge, raised an eyebrow. "So we just leave them to become Kro'gon statues?" Harkon finally looked up, his reptilian eyes cold. "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, Doctor. That is a fundamental principle of strategic engagement." Zara stared at the Vorlag for a long moment. "This is a human ship, Officer Harkon, and on my ship, we don't leave. People to die if there's a chance we can help them without fatally compromising our objective." She turned to her helm officer. "Plot a course. Minimal risk approach. Shields up, weapons ready. Let's see if anyone's still home." The Trailblazer maneuvered cautiously through the swirling debris and energized particles. The Gralnak freighter, the Stonewaker, was a battered hulk, its hull pockmarked and partially encrusted with nascent Kro'gon crystals. One of its engines was shattered. Life signs. 1. "Barely," the sensor officer reported. "Open a channel. This is Commander Hendrix of the UNSS Trailblazer. Stonewaker, do you read?" A weak, rasping voice, heavily filtered through static, replied, "This is Torvin, engineer, Stonewaker, hull breach, life support, failing, Kro'gon, everywhere." "Hang on, Torvin, we're coming to get you," Zara said. She turned to her security chief. "Prep a boarding party. Jona, you're with them. Your biology expertise might be useful. Alara, Harkon, you have the bridge with me." The rescue was tense. Kro'gon shards were actively growing on the freighter's hull, and small, crystalline spiders, an adaptive form of the Scourge, skittered across its surface, drawn to the Trailblazer's energy signature. Jona, clad in a heavy-duty EV suit, worked with the security team to cut through to the Gralnak engineer. They found Torvin, a stout, silicon-based being whose rocky hide was cracked and dull, trapped beneath a fallen support beam, his internal temperature dropping dangerously. They brought him aboard the Trailblazer just as a larger Kro'gon fragment detached from a nearby derelict and began to drift menacingly towards them. "Evasive maneuvers," Zara snapped, and the Trailblazer agilely dodged the crystalline threat, its point defense lasers flaring to break up smaller pieces. Once Torvin was stabilized in the Trailblazer's specialized medical bay, Jona had to improvise heavily as Gralnak physiology was poorly documented. The Gralnak engineer, his voice still weak but coherent, explained what had happened. New Kro'gon adaptation, energy leeches. Small, fast, didn't attack the hull at first. They went straight for the power conduits. Drained us dry, then the larger forms moved in. His multifaceted eyes focused on the Trailblazers, exposed internal workings visible in a maintenance panel. "Your ship, it's different. The leeches, they wouldn't like your bioelectrical pathways. Too messy. Too unpredictable for their attack patterns." Jona nodded slowly. "Our biological components run on entirely different energy signatures than standard tech. More diffuse, harder to target." This was an unexpected validation of Earth's messy engineering. Alara Vane, observing the exchange, felt a surge of confirmation. The Trailblazer, with its human-designed eccentricities, was proving more resilient than even she had hoped. Harkon, however, merely noted in his log, "Deviation from mission parameters to rescue Gralnak survivor. Increased risk exposure by 17.4%. Human sentimentality overriding tactical logic." Yet even he couldn't ignore Torvin's assessment of the Krogon's new weapon and the Trailblazer's inherent defense against it. With Torvin now part of their reluctant crew, his engineering skills with robust, simple systems proving surprisingly useful in rerouting power around damaged relays, the Trailblazer pressed on. They navigated through fields of dormant Kro'gon seeds, bypassed crystalline sentinels that pulsed with stolen energy, and evaded vast, web-like nets of razor-sharp monofilaments. Each encounter tested the ship and its crew, forcing them to improvise and adapt. Jona often worked with Torvin, finding the Gralnak's straightforward approach to mechanics a refreshing counterpoint to complex theory. Zara's leadership was unwavering, her calm commands a steady anchor in the encroaching gloom. Even Alara found herself assisting, her knowledge of compact sensor technology helping to identify subtle Kro'gon energy signatures. The gloom sector was living up to its name. The stars were occluded by dust and crystalline webs, and an oppressive silence, broken only by the hum of the Trailblazer's unique engines, pressed in on them. They were truly alone, a tiny spark of Earth-born life, venturing into the heart of an alien desolation. "Commander," the sensor chief reported, his voice hushed, "we're approaching the coordinates for the targeted nexus. Energy readings are astronomical, far exceeding initial intelligence estimates." On the main view screen, a terrifying spectacle began to resolve from the darkness. It wasn't just a nexus. It was a nascent Kro'gon Dyson sphere, a colossal jagged latticework of crystal engulfing a dying star, pulsing with a malevolent inner light. Harkon, for the first time, looked visibly shaken. He activated his secure comm line to Borak Khan. "War leader, the target assessment was critically flawed. The nexus it is a fortress. I advise immediate withdrawal. The Terran vessel cannot survive this." Zara heard the edge of panic, in his voice a stark contrast to his usual emotionless reports. She knew with chilling certainty that the most dangerous part of their journey was about to begin. The site of the Kro'gon Nexus, designated Xylos Beta by the Compact before its fall, silenced the Trailblazer's bridge. It was a monstrous jewel of interlocking crystalline planes, kilometers thick, slowly encasing the captured star at its heart. Tendrils of solidified energy reached out into the void like grasping claws, and the entire structure pulsed with a rhythm that seemed to resonate deep within their bones, a hungry, cosmic heartbeat. Intelligence was off by several orders of magnitude, Zara Hendrix stated grimly, her knuckles white where she gripped her command chair. This isn't an outlying nexus, Jona. This is a regional primary. Dr. Jona Cassian stared at the holo display, his mind racing. It's magnificent. Terrifyingly, apocalyptically magnificent. He shook his head. But the principle remains the same. It's a single interconnected entity. If we can introduce the cocktail to a critical node, assuming we can get close enough, Zara cut in, sensors show massive energy discharges, gravitic shearing, and swarms of those crystalline shards we encountered earlier, only much, much larger. Envoy Alara Vane felt a cold dread seep through her. This was beyond anything the compact had imagined. Commander Officer Harkon's assessment is, perhaps correct. This may be a battle even the Trailblazer cannot win. Before Zara could respond, Harkon's voice, tight with alarm, cut through the tension. Commander, I am receiving a priority directive from War Leader Borak Khan. He orders us to abort the mission immediately. He states that new intelligence confirms the Nexus is too powerful. We are to withdraw to compact space or be classified as a rogue element and neutralized to prevent Deathworlder contamination if the cocktail is deployed recklessly. Zara's eyes narrowed. Neutralized? Is he threatening us, Harkon? Harkon looked genuinely distressed, a crack in his Vorlag impassivity. Commander, the war leader believes this is a suicide mission, and that a failed deployment could make the Kro'gon even more adaptable. He is trying to prevent a greater disaster. He has authorized Vorlag ships on the border of the Gloom sector to enforce a quarantine. They will fire on us if we try to return after a failed or unauthorized deployment. A heavy silence fell. They were caught between a crystalline devil and a deep void of military dogma. So, we're damned if we do, damned if we don't, Jona murmured. Typical. It was Torvin, the Gralnak engineer, who broke the impasse. His rocky voice, usually quiet, rumbled with unexpected force. This Vorlag, he sits safe on his warship while worlds die. The Gralnak. My people. We don't have many worlds left to lose. This nexus is a cancer. You humans, you have the knife. Are you going to use it or wait until the patient is dead? Zara looked at her crew. At Jona, his face alight with a dangerous scientific fervor. At Alara, her usual Kython composure strained but her eyes holding a flicker of defiant hope. At Torvin, his stolid Gralnak features set in grim determination. Even at Harkon, who seemed to be wrestling with his ingrained loyalty and the horrifying reality before him. Comms, Zara said, her voice ringing with authority. Cut our link to the compact command frequency. Officer Harkon, you are relieved of your official reporting duties. You are now a guest aboard this vessel. You can choose to assist or you can choose to remain silent. But you will not interfere. Harkon stared at her, stunned. Commander, this is direct defiance of a lawful order from the Stellar Compact High Command. The Stellar Compact High Command is about to lose its last chance, officer, Zara retorted. We're not turning back. She turned to her helm. Take us in. Find us a weak point. Jona, prepare the torpedoes. This Deathworld is about to make a house call. The Trailblazer plunged toward the Kro'gon's maw. The ship shuddered as it navigated gravitic tides and energy bursts. Crystalline shards, some as large as fighters, swarmed them. The Trailblazer's point defense lasers, augmented by Torvin's jury-rigged power boosters, spat defiance, shattering the smaller threats. The hull's symbiotic fungi glowed faintly, absorbing dangerous radiation. The cocktail deployment. System needs to get within 5 kilometers of a primary energy conduit, Jona reported from the lab. His voice strained against the ship's violent maneuvers. But their defensive swarms are too dense. The torpedoes won't make it through. We need a distraction or a clearer path, Zara gritted out, wrestling with the controls as an energy wave buffeted the ship. Suddenly, Harkon spoke, his voice hesitant but clear. Commander, the Vorlag quarantine fleet. Their firing patterns. They are designed to contain, to sterilize. If they were to fire at the Nexus at a specific point, it might create a temporary breach in its outer defenses. Zara looked at him surprised. You'd suggest firing on your own people's potential position, Harkon? No, Commander, Harkon said, his gaze surprisingly steady. I would suggest using the war leader's own rigid tactics against the true enemy. He has ships positioned at the edge of the gloom sector. They are awaiting my signal to confirm your rogue status, or your destruction. If I send a precisely timed false positive of mission failure, coupled with telemetry suggesting the Trailblazer was destroyed near a specific quadrant of the Nexus, Borak Khan's protocols would demand he sterilize that area immediately, to prevent Kro'gon from scavenging your contaminated technology. Jona's eyes widened. A Vorlag-strength bombardment creating an opening for us? The irony is delicious. Alara added, It is a desperate gamble, Harkon. If your timing is off, or if the war leader does not react as predicted, he will react as predicted, Harkon stated with newfound certainty. His adherence to protocol is absolute. That is his strength. And his weakness. He looked at Zara. It is the only way to get your torpedoes through the outer shell, but the shockwave from such a bombardment this close, it will be severe. Zara weighed the impossible odds. Do it, Harkon. Send the signal. Helm, prepare for extreme turbulence and a high-speed run once that breach opens. Harkon's fingers flew across his console, transmitting the falsified data packet. Minutes stretched into an eternity. Then, on the long-range sensors, massive energy spikes. The distant Vorlag fleet, believing the Trailblazer lost and the area contaminated, unleashed a focused barrage of chronoton torpedoes at the exact coordinates Harkon had indicated. The section of the Kro'gon Nexus flared brilliantly, a colossal wound appearing in its crystalline hide. The defensive swarms momentarily faltered, disoriented by the unexpected assault. Now, Zara, now! Jona yelled. Full thrust, Zara commanded. The Trailblazer surged forward, a tiny needle aimed, at the heart of the behemoth. They punched through the weakened defenses, the ship screaming under the strain. Alarms blared as hull integrity dropped. Torvin was rerouting power, bypassing fried circuits, his rocky hands a blur. Torpedo bay doors open, target locked on. The primary energy conduit, Jona shouted. Firing solution ready? Fire! Zara roared. The Terran Cocktail torpedoes launched, sleek silver darts carrying Earth's deadliest biological warriors. They streaked through the breach, homing in on the exposed, pulsing heart of the Nexus. The Trailblazer, battered and barely holding together, veered sharply away, trying to escape the inevitable backlash. They watched on the aft scanners as the torpedoes struck home. For a moment, nothing. Then, a flicker. A change in the Nexus's internal glow. It wasn't an explosion, not in the conventional sense. It was a discoloration. A creeping organic rot spreading through the crystalline lattice from the impact points. The vibrant, malevolent light of the Kro'gon structure began to dim, to sputter, replaced by murky spreading patches where the Extremophiles were starting their feast, breaking down the complex energy bonds, turning the Kro'gon's perfect structure into their own chaotic buffet. It's working, Alara breathed, her voice filled with awe. The cocktail, it's spreading. The Nexus shuddered, a colossal tremor that sent shockwaves through the gloom sector. Chunks of crystal, now inert and dull, began to shear off its surface. The organized, terrifying intelligence of the Kro'gon seemed to be unraveling. Let's get the hell out of here before this whole thing comes crashing down, Zara ordered, her voice hoarse. The Trailblazer, bleeding atmosphere and running on sheer human grit and Gralnak ingenuity, turned its battered nose towards the faint, distant shimmer of compact space, leaving behind a dying god of crystal and the dawning, terrifying realization that a Class 12 Deathworld had just saved the galaxy. The maw had been fed, not with the Trailblazer, but with its own indigestible poison. The journey back from the Kro'gon's maw was a limping, patched-together crawl. The UNSS Trailblazer was a shadow of its former self, its hull scarred and pitted, one engine sputtering erratically, and its internal systems a chaotic patchwork of human improvisation, Gralnak resilience, and sheer willpower. Yet it flew, And behind it, the Gloom sector was undergoing a profound transformation. The shattering of the Xylos Beta Nexus had sent a cascade failure throughout the Kro'gon network in that region of space. The crystalline structures, deprived of their central coordinating intelligence and actively consumed by the Terran Extremophiles, began to crumble. The creeping, inexorable advance of the Scourge halted, then visibly receded from system after system. Worlds that had been on the brink of total crystallization saw the Kro'gon formations dull, fracture, and then slowly, impossibly, begin to break down into inert dust. It wasn't a swift cleansing, but it was a definitive turning of the tide. The Terran Cocktail was not just a weapon. It was an ecological counteragent seeding itself, spreading, and patiently devouring the crystalline plague. As the Trailblazer finally limped across the border of compact space, they were met, not by hostile Vorlag warships, but by a stunned, disbelieving silence. The quarantine fleet, still under War Leader Borak Khan's command, had witnessed the unthinkable on their long-range sensors. The energy signature of the Kro'gon Nexus vanishing, replaced by chaotic biological readings unlike anything they had ever encountered. Commander Zara Hendrix, her face smudged with grime and exhaustion but her eyes blazing with triumph, opened a channel to the lead Vorlag cruiser. Stellar Compact Command, this is UNSS Trailblazer. Mission accomplished. The Kro'gon Nexus at Xylos Beta has been neutralized. We are returning. The response was hesitant, almost fearful. Then, slowly, other ships began to appear on their screens. Keithan science vessels, Sintar diplomatic ships, even a few heavily armed Gralnak mining guild ships that had heard whispers of the Terran audacity. The channel filled with voices, a cacophony of disbelief, dawning hope, and 1,000 questions. When the Trailblazer finally docked at Concordia Prime's primary starport, it was to a reception that bordered on hysteria. The news had spread like wildfire. The Deathworlders, the primitives from the Class 12 hazard planet, had done what the combined might of the Stellar Compact could not. War Leader Borak Khan was conspicuously absent from the official welcoming committee. He had been summoned before an emergency session of the High Council, where Envoy Alara Vane and a surprisingly eloquent Officer Harkon delivered their irrefutable testimony. Harkon, his Vorlag honor demanding truth above previous allegiances, detailed not only the Trailblazer's incredible success, but also Borak Khan's attempts to obstruct the mission and his threat to neutralize the human vessel. The recordings from the Trailblazer's logs showcasing the war leader's rigid and ultimately self-defeating orders sealed his fate. Stripped of his rank and facing charges of dereliction of duty and endangerment of the compact, Borak Khan was a broken figure, his belief in unwavering protocol having led him to almost sabotage the galaxy's salvation. The crew of the Trailblazer found themselves unlikely heroes. Dr. Jona Cassian, covered in grease from helping Torvin patch a ruptured conduit during their return, tried to explain the complex biokinetics of the Terran Cocktail to wide-eyed alien scientists who listened with a mixture of horror and profound admiration. You see, Jona explained, holding up a sample of mundane Earth soil he'd brought for good luck. Life on Earth is a constant war. Every microbe, every plant, every insect is fighting for resources, for survival. The Kro'gon was an apex predator in a sterile environment. We just introduced it to an ecosystem where everything is an apex predator in its own niche. It simply couldn't compete with billions of years of evolved aggression and hunger. He smiled faintly. Turns out, being a Deathworlder has its perks. Commander Zara Hendrix stood before the Stellar Compact High Council. No longer a supplicant, but an equal, she gave a concise, factual account of the mission, her quiet dignity and unwavering competence earning the deep respect of even the most skeptical delegates. When offered commendations and resources, she simply stated, "Humanity is part of this galaxy. We did what was necessary. Earth asks for nothing but to be recognized as a sovereign member of the galactic community, willing to share our unique perspectives for the common good." Alara Vane, her status elevated, became Earth's most vocal advocate within the compact. The Keithan ascendancy once viewed Earth with apprehension, as a place of uncontrolled chaos, she told the assembled leaders. We were wrong. Earth is a crucible, forging resilience, adaptability, and a form of pragmatic genius that we, in our ordered worlds, had forgotten or perhaps never truly known. They are not the galaxy's hazard. They are, as we have seen, its fiercest protectors when all other hope is lost. Torvin, the Gralnak engineer, found himself an unexpected celebrity among the Compact's engineering corps, his practical skills and tales of the Trailblazer's ad hoc repairs becoming legend. He simply grunted his satisfaction and expressed a desire to see Earth's impressively over-engineered mountains. In the weeks that followed, the full impact of the Trailblazer's mission became clear. The Kro'gon Scourge was in full retreat across multiple sectors. The Terran Cocktail, while potent, showed no signs of harming non-Kro'gon life or technology, becoming dormant once its primary food source was depleted, just as Jona had predicted. Earth, the once feared Class 12 Deathworld, became a beacon. Its scientific outposts were flooded with requests for collaboration. Its fledgling interstellar trade routes saw a surge of curious visitors. Humans, once viewed as dangerous curiosities, were now regarded with a mixture of awe, respect, and a healthy dose of caution. They were the Deathworlders, the ones who had walked through the fire and emerged, not just unscathed, but stronger. Months later, Dr. Jona Cassian stood on a wind-swept cliff overlooking the Pacific Ocean on Earth. The air was salty, carrying the scent of kelp and distant rain. A massive storm was brewing on the horizon, the sky a canvas of bruised purples and grays. It was beautiful in its terrible power. He picked up a handful of rich, dark soil, letting it run through his fingers. It teemed with microscopic life, a silent, constant battle for existence that had, against all odds, saved a galaxy. Zara Hendrix joined him, her off-duty civilian clothes a stark contrast to her crisp uniform. "They're still trying to give us medals, you know," she said, a wry smile on her face. "And half the Kython Science Academy wants to emigrate." Jona chuckled. "Let them come. They might learn a thing or two about creative problem-solving when your lab assistant is trying to eat you." He looked out at the raging sea. "They called our world a Deathtrap, Zara, a Class 12 terminal hazard, and we called it home. Improvement," Zara finished, her gaze meeting his. "Turns out our brand of improvement was exactly what the galaxy needed." The wind howled, a familiar earthly roar, no longer just a sound of their planet but a faint echo of the day the Deathworlders had taught the stars themselves a new definition of resilience. The dawn had come, not with gentle light, but with the fierce, untamed spirit of Earth.